Okay, last lecture, we started our discussion about Pidgins and Creoles from our social linguistics, from that subject, as we couldn't finish it. So today we'll also be focusing on the same topics. And I guess that you will find it very interesting because Pidgins and Creoles, they are languages, obviously, but they are different kinds of languages. We cannot call them the regular languages, but still they're very important. And we, the human being, we are, in a sense, we are creating these languages quite artificially. And it's on the needs basis. That means on the basis of a need, we create Pidgins and Creoles. And these languages are used as lingua franca for the communication between two different groups. And where you'll find that both of the groups, they don't want to, shun, or they don't want to leave their language or abandon their language. And also these two groups want to maintain their own language. So when they want to communicate, so they come to a compromise and they create a different kinds of language, which is influenced by both the language speakers. And from there actually we get pidgins, and later on these pidgins actually it will be in an advanced stage. When it has been used, then it is formed as a creoles. So pidgin actually, from pidgin we get creoles. So we will be discussing what is pidgin and what is creoles in today's discussion, today's lecture. Okay, now let me move on to the next slide. Important ones that I'm going to. Okay, here, as you can see. Well, we talked about it, but just I want to recap the whole thing so you find it easy. The discussions that is coming later. So it will help you to understand it. So what is a pidgin? A pidgin is a language with no native speakers. So there will be no native speakers. For example, we are Bangladeshi people. Our language is Bangla. So we are the native speakers of Bangla. But if anything happens like this, that we have lots of people who are speaking English, or you can say the native English speakers, they are staying in our country and they don't want to learn completely. They don't want to learn the Bangla, and we also don't want to learn the English in that sense. So, or maybe some of us, we are incapable of learning English. And maybe the English people, they're incapable of learning Bangla. So what they can do, they can create an artificial language which will have both the characteristics of both of these languages. Both Bangla and English, you can find it there. So the vocabulary or the sentence structure of both the languages are traceable, or you can identify them, notify them. You can notice them actually in the pidgin language. So as it says that there is no native speakers because it's nobody's mother tongue. It's just a language used for purely for communication. That's it. So it is no one's first language, but it is a contact language. So we call pidgin, it's a contact language. That is, it is the product of a multilingual situation in which those who wish to communicate must find or improvise a simple language system that will enable them to do so. So they need a simple language system that already I have explained it to you, so that both this group of people, they can communicate using that artificial or that created language or contact language. And it is a kind of improvisation. Okay, it's an improvised simple language system that we say. Very often too, that situation is one in which there is an imbalance of power among the languages as the speakers of one language dominate the speakers of the other language economically and socially. Now, very often too, you can also find the imbalance. That situation is one that in which there is an imbalance of power among the languages. That means, for example, Bangla and also the English, we can take this case. For example, English people, maybe they are more powerful than us. So we'll find that because of their power, and or maybe they are in the hierarchy, if you consider the authority. So in that case, you can find the imbalance of language. So English will be in a privilege. It will enjoy a kind of privilege, that means privileged status. And Bangla will not enjoy that kind of privilege because of its political and economical, privileges, because it is not that much privileges or not that much powerful. I'm just giving an example. Don't take it, that this is the real example. Just giving an example to understand it. Though this is not the situation, In our country, we know it very well. We are not dominated by English people or any native English nations. So I'm just giving an example for our understanding. Okay, so imbalance of power among the languages as the speakers of one language dominate the speakers of the other language. So the speakers of English, they will dominate the speakers of Bangla because they're in the power. And that's why actually there will be a kind of imbalance. A highly codified language often accompanies that dominant position. So if a language is highly codified, we have already come to know about this codification in the standardization, I mean, in that when actually we're talking about that language, when actually we codify, when that language enjoys the privilege and that is more powerful or used by the more powerful people. So that language will get the privilege or advantage in the society or in the linguistic phenomenon. So a highly codified language often accompanies that dominant position. So that language will, enjoy a kind of dominant position in the society. A pidgin is therefore sometimes regarded as a reduced variety of a normal language. That is, one of the aforementioned dominant languages with simplification of the grammar and vocabulary of that language, considerable phonological variation, and an admixture of local vocabulary to meet the spatial needs of the contact people group. So a pidgin is therefore sometimes regarded as a reduced variety of normal language. So Bangla is a normal language, English is a normal language. So when actually we want to have a language for communication or contact, then this contact language or this pidgin, actually it is not a normal. It is reduced version of the normal language. So we have taken some of the characteristics of basic things from both the languages just for basic communication. That's why it is not a normal language. Understood what I'm saying? Have you got it? Is this idea clear? That
Sir.
It is a reduced variety of a normal language. What does it mean? Okay?
Yes, sir.
Because here actually we'll see, the grammar has been simplified, vocabulary has been simplified, and also you can find the phonological variation, you can find the traits of the phonological variations of both the language. And it has also been made simplified, or it has been simplified for the very easy communication of both the group of people, both the people who are speaking Bangla and both the people who are speaking English. Okay? So grammar, vocabulary, and also the pronunciation. From all these perspectives, you'll find that that language is very easy. So people who are using this contact language, so they will find it very easy to use that language for their daily communication among people from different groups, especially those 2, 3, or 4 different groups. Okay? Ahern defines a pidgin as he said, a reduced language that results from extended contact between groups of people with no language in common. It evolves when they need some means of verbal communication, perhaps for trade, but no group learns the native language of any other group for social reasons that may include lack of trust of close contact. A reduced language that results from extended contact between groups of people with no language in common. Just focus on this phrase, no language in common. So you see, speakers of Bangla, our language is Bangla, and English people, their language is English. You see, we don't have any common language that both of us that we can talk. I can give you a solid example from South Africa. In South Africa, you'll find that people can speak, white people or black people, most of the people, they can speak English and they can also speak Afrikaans. And there are some tribes, they have their own language. But when they want to communicate, both the group, even if they can't speak English, but all of them, they can speak Afrikaans. So Afrikaans, actually, it works like a lingua franca. That means it's a language. Although it is established, it is an established language. It's not that that language has been created just like Pidgin as a contact language. That language existed individually as an individual language, a separate language. So it's been already there. So that's why in that situation, they didn't need to create another language for communication with both of these group of people who can't speak English or the other tribal languages. Uh, is that clear what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Do you need any clarification, anyone? Okay, then I can move on. Now it evolves when they need some means of verbal communication. That how actually, this language evolves, or how this language emerges as a language because of the need of the verbal communication, because they need verbal communication. So this is the necessity for the people of all the groups, that they feel the necessity of having a common language. But since there is no common language, so taking all the languages in consideration, some of the grammatical items, vocabulary, and also the phonological traits, those are taken from all those languages that are involved in that particular circumstances or context, and they create a new language for verbal communication. Perhaps for trade, but no group learns the native language of any other group for social reasons. Perhaps for trade. So usually we can see that this language is used for trade. As you know, Portuguese people, Spanish people, and also the English people, they went to different parts of the world. Uh, Especially, you can see that in the last 200 or 300 years back, if you just go there, you can see that these merchants, English merchants, Spanish merchants, then Portuguese merchants, businessmen, they travel to different parts of the world. So their purpose was to visit those countries. It was just for business. So when actually they went to different countries, for example, you can say the Spanish people, they went to Latin America. Mexico, or all these countries actually, they speak Spanish, you can see, till this day. So these people, when they went there, so they wanted to communicate with the local people. Actually, Pidginization of this Pidgin language, it happened more in the Caribbean countries and also in the African countries, where the French people actually, when they went to, for example, Ivory Coast and different other parts of the African countries, then the Republic of Congo. So in all these countries, Congo actually, it was a colony of the Belgium. Present days, that is Belgium. At that time, it was also a kind of empire. So they also controlled, colonized Congo. So you see, these different people, different group of people, especially the businessmen or merchants, they went to from Europe, they went to different parts of the world, especially in Africa and Caribbean countries. And when they went there, neither they can speak their language, or the merchants, they couldn't speak the locals, the language of the locals. So out of necessity, they created an artificial language, and that we call Pidgin. And in different areas, they have a different kinds of Pidgin, and different Pidgins sound different. They have different vocabulary, different structure. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Shubhasri.
Yes, sir.
Salat?
Yes, sir.
Got it?
Yes,
What
sir.
I'm saying, do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Is Tanjir here? Tanjir, are you here? Tanjir.
No,
Only
sir. Absent.
Great. Okay. Yeah, do you have any question? Somebody wanted to say something. Do you have any question? No?
No, sir.
Okay, that's great. So because of the trade purpose, actually they created this language just to communicate with the locals, and also the locals, they wanted to communicate with the merchants who are visiting them from different parts of the world, especially from the European countries. Okay. Now, the process of Pidginization probably requires a situation that involves at least 3 languages, one of which is clearly dominant over the others. If only 2 languages are involved, there is likely to be a direct struggle for dominance, as between English and French in England, after 1066. A struggle won in that case by the socially inferior language, but only after more than 2 centuries of coexistence. Now, this is an interesting linguistic phenomenon that you can see here. It says that the process of Pidginization probably requires a situation that involves at least 3 languages. And if you have 2 languages, for example, Bangla and English, so either Bangladeshi people, because since maybe English people they're in the power, so they will learn English. English people, they will not learn Bangla. Do you get the point that I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
If there is any linguistic situation where only 2 languages are involved,
Yes, sir.
in such cases, the powerful, from the powerful nation, people from the powerful nation, they will not learn the language of the people that they're dominating. On the other hand, people who are dominated, they will learn the language of their masters. Right?
Right, sir.
So if you really want to have a Pidgin situation, you must have at least 3 languages where there will be a struggle between these 3 languages, and you can see that one language cannot declare that I'm the superior out of these 3. Maybe at least out of these 3, 2 of the languages and the speakers of those languages might be, they're equally powerful. So in that case, if I'm the colonized, I'm the people from the colonized state or nation, then which language actually I'm going to adopt? French or English? Because both this group of people, they're powerful. If I learn French, then I will not be able to communicate with the English people and they will not be happy with this situation. And also if I learn English, then people who are, who are the speakers of French language, they will not be able to communicate with us, and also they will develop a kind of hatred against us because we have learned English, we didn't learn French. So we need a language which will be used as a contact language among all these people from these 3 different groups of people. So all these people from these 3 groups, they can communicate with that language. So you see, you need at least 3 different languages to have Pidgin. But here we have been given an example of English and French. French, at that time it was an empire, and these French people, they attacked England, and also they ruled England for several centuries. And when they ruled England at that time, many people, they had to learn French because French were in their power. So even English people, English speakers, they learned French. But you can see the very local English language, very common English language, which, at that time, which had been used by the commoners, by the general people. That language somehow, it survived and people use that language. And as a result, still you can see the influence of English in UK. And when actually, even at that time, French, actually they were in the power and they were ruling these, UK, England, but still common people, local people, laymen, they were using English. And because of this, English survived, though these English and French people, they coexisted, in that land for centuries. But English somehow survived, and it wasn't that much influenced. Obviously, it was influenced. It borrowed vocabulary, different expressions, but we don't see that in England, all of them, they have become French speakers. It didn't happen. So that's a different example. It's an exclusive example. So we cannot use that example for Pidginization. So that's actually the author actually has mentioned it. That though actually French and English people, they stayed together, but still people spoke, English in, at that time under the rule of French Empire. Now, yeah, when 3 or more languages are involved and one is dominant, The speakers of the two or more that are inferior appear to play a critical role in the development of a pidgin. For example, we have French, we have German, and then we have French, German, and for example, we have another language, we can say Afrikaans. Just, I'm giving an example. So among these three, it's Afrikaans, they're the least powerful, nation. And then just for argument's sake, we can say that French is more powerful than German, okay? Do you get my point, what I'm saying? So just imagine a situation where we have three different kinds of speakers of languages. One is French, another one is Afrikaans in South Africa, and another one is German, okay?
Okay, sir.
All right, now, when you imagine this situation, now we can say that people who are speaking Afrikaans, that means South African people, they are least powerful, and then less powerful is German, but the most powerful out of these three is French. Now, French is the dominant language, okay? And then these two group of people whose languages are, or whose nation is not as dominant as French, what will they do? These German speakers, people who are speaking German, and people who speak Afrikaans, they will develop a kind of language with the help of French speakers, and this situation of Pidginization there, it will evolve. Now, here you see the speaker, what will they do? Is dominant speakers of the two or more that are inferior appear to play a critical role. So these two groups, German and people who are speaking Afrikaans, they will play a critical role in the development of a pidgin. They must not only speak to those who are in the dominant position, but they must also speak to each other. So you see, we have three different groups of people, and nobody speaks, nobody's language. So for example, I don't speak your language, you don't speak my language, and also we don't speak French. So what will you do? So we need a common language, and for that, the people who are, who are less dominant or less powerful, they will create a language so that they can communicate with the people in power. Here, in our case, in this example, like French, so they want to communicate with the French people, and also they want to communicate with the people, Africans and German. Each other, they want to communicate among themselves, between themselves. So that's why they will create a different kind of language, and that is called pidgin. Okay, so you can see the people who are less powerful, they play the vital role to create or to process this pidgin. Okay? Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Right. Now, they must not only speak to those who are in the dominant position, but they must also speak to each other. To do this, they must simplify the dominant language in certain ways, and its process of simplification may or may not have certain universal characteristics. So when actually they are taking this process of changing or creating a new language, so what will they do? They will simplify the dominant language. So in our case, in our example, the speakers of the less dominant people, they will simplify French so that they can use it very easily. So they will simplify the vocabulary, they will simplify the sentence structure, the grammar. So here you see, and this change, you cannot find it, or you cannot determine, or you cannot define it that these are the universal characteristics, because it's a created language, an artificial language, pidgin, that we are talking about. So here, actually, you will not find the universal rules and regulations of grammar and vocabulary, the way actually a language should be, the way a language should look like, or the way actually a language that we can use. So it is not the regular language. Okay. We may argue, therefore, that a pidgin arises from the simplification of a language when that language comes to dominate groups of speakers separated from each other by language differences. So you see, therefore, that pidgin arises from the simplification of a language. So pidgin starts from the simplification. ভাষার সরলীকরণ করার মাধ্যমে বা সহজ করার মাধ্যমে পিজনের জন্ম, যাতে কমিউনিকেশনটা ইজিলি করে। when that language comes to dominate groups of speakers, separated from each other by language differences. So when that language comes to dominate groups of speakers, so separated from each other by language differences. So they are separated by language differences, and when they come together, you can see that language comes to dominate groups of speakers. So these will dominate the groups of speakers. That means most of the people, then they will use this pidgin because they have differences in their language, their mother tongue. Their native language is not common, and they don't have a common language. That's why they created an artificial language that we're calling pidgin. Now, this hypothesis partially explains not only the origin of pidgins in slave societies, in which the slaves were deliberately drawn from a variety of language backgrounds, but also their origin on sea coasts, where a variety of languages might be spoken, but the language of trade is a pidgin. So try to comprehend the situation. Here you see, it says that now we can have a hypothesis. We can have a hypothesis, and what is that? That how this pidgin actually evolves, or the origin of pidgins, that we can think about it. How actually it happened, or how does it happen? It happens in this way that there are earlier, at that time in Europe, not in this century obviously, before, even in the 19th century, some part of the 19th century, we can see that. But it was abolished. The slavery, it was abolished in the 1900s. But still you can see that people at that time, they used to bring lots of slaves, especially the black people from different African countries. Okay?
Okay, sir.
And these African people, these slaves, they were brought to, or actually they were sold in the market. And then their masters, their owners, they would take them to their countries. For example, from South Africa or different African countries, they would buy different black people as slaves. For example, American people, British people, Spanish, then Portuguese, French, all these people, they would buy these slaves and they would take them to their homeland, and then they would use them. They would use them as slaves, especially in different kinds of plantation, in factories. So, they would compel them to work for them, and that was almost completely free of cost because they were their slaves. And since they were slaves, they were bound to, abide by the rules that were set by their masters, or the slave masters, rather I should say. So because of these, master-slave situations in the society, these slave people, they couldn't, for example, if they were taken to USA, so they couldn't speak English. So they would try to simplify the English so that they can communicate with their masters, since they can't speak English. And since their masters, they can't speak the slave's language. বুঝা গেছে কি বলছি? যেহেতু স্লেভারির সময় স্লেভদেরকে কিনে নিয়ে যাওয়া হতো বিভিন্ন দেশে, সুতরাং যাদেরকে যে দেশে স্লেভ মাস্টাররা কিনে নিয়ে যেত, সে সেই দেশের ভাষায় কথা বলতো, আর এরা যখন যেহেতু এই ভাষাটা পারতো না, ধরো যাক কোনো একটা দাস ব্ল্যাক পিপলকে কিনে নিয়ে যাওয়া হলো স্পেন, তো সে তো স্প্যানিশ ভাষা পারে না, তখন সে ভাষাটা শুনে শুনে চেষ্টা করে যে ওই ভাষাটাই সহজেই কিভাবে তার মালিকের সাথে সে কথা বলতে পারে, সে অনুযায়ী সে ওটাকে একটা নিজস্ব মতো একটা ফর্মেট দাঁড় করে, এটা প্রয়োজনের খাতিরেই হয়ে যায়, যাতে করে সে অ্যাটলিস্ট কিছু বেসিক কমিউনিকেশন তার মাস্টারের সাথে করতে পারে, এবং তার মাস্টারও যাতে তার সাথে কিছু বেসিক কমিউনিকেশন করতে পারে। এইভাবে দেখা যেত একটা পিজিন ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজের ইভলভ হতো, একটা আর্টিফিশিয়াল ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ, একটা প্রয়োজনের ভাষা তৈরি। বোঝা গেছে?
Sure.
And there is another situation, that is in the sea coast. You see, in the sea coast, trades actually still we have trades or supplies actually by seas. So since actually there are lots of trades were going on there also at that time. So all those ships they used to they were you can say harbored in different coasts, in different ports in different parts of the world. So when they actually went for business in different sea coasts, all these merchants are businessmen, So they actually needed to communicate with the locals, and also the local people, they also needed to communicate with those businessmen. So that's why if you go to the seacoast at that time, not now, I'm just talking about the past. So at that time, in the seacoast, different group of people, they're using different kinds of languages. But when they communicate among themselves, I mean, all these groups, when they communicate among themselves, then at that time they would use this pidgin language so that all the people in that group, they can contact with each other. Understood what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
ব্যবসার খাতিরে উপকূলে প্রচুর জাহাজ আসতো, তারা এখানে বিজনেস করতো। সুতরাং উপকূলে গেলে দেখা যেত কি, যে সবাই নানা ভাষায় কথা বলছে। যখনই কেউ কমিউনিকেশন করে, তখন সবাই একটা পিজিন একটা ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ বানিয়ে দিচ্ছে, যেটা পর্তুগিজরাও ব্যবহার করলে সবাই বুঝতে পারে, আবার ফ্রেঞ্চরাও ওই ভাষায় কথা বলতেছে, আবার লোকাল যারা আছে তারাও ওই একই ভাষায় সবাই সবার সাথে কমিউনিকেট করছে। আর এই ভাষাটার উৎপত্তি হয়েছে সবগুলো ভাষা মিলিয়ে, সহজবোধ্য ভাষা করা হচ্ছে, যাতে সবার সাথে ওটা দিয়ে কমিউনিকেশন করা যায়। অর্থাৎ ওইখানে যে ব্যবসার খাতিরে যতগুলো ভাষাভাষীর মানুষগুলো তাদের সাথে কন্ট্যাক্ট হতো, তারা ওই সবগুলো ভাষার কিছু কোয়ালিটি নিয়ে একটা সিম্পল ভাষণ করছিল বা করতো, বা সেই ভাষণে তারা কি করতো, যারা ওখানে বিজনেস করতে আসতো তাদের সাথে লোকালরা কমিউনিকেশন করতো, এবং যারা বিজনেস করতে আসতো তারাও ওই প্রয়োজনের তাগিদে বানানো সেই ভাষাটা দিয়ে লোকালদের সাথে তারা কমিউনিকেট। কিন্তু কেউই কারো মাদার টাং বুঝতো না। যেমন ফ্রেঞ্চদের মাদার টাঙে আফ্রিকানসরা কথা বলতে পারতো না, যারা আফ্রিকানস বলেন, আবার যারা আফ্রিকানস বলেন এই আফ্রিকানস ভাষা আবার ইংলিশও বলতে পারে বা ফ্রেঞ্চও বলতে পারে। তখন তারা বাধ্য হয়ে এর মাঝামাঝিতে একটা ভাষা সৃষ্টি করে। তার ফলশ্রুতিতে যে ভাষাটা পাওয়া যায় বা পাওয়া যাবে, এই প্রসেসটা, এটা নাম হচ্ছে পিজিন। Is that okay?
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Now here we have some examples for where is it? Okay, let me read to you. It also helps to explain why Pidginized varieties of languages are used much more as lingua francas by people who cannot speak the corresponding standard languages. Then they're used between such people and speakers of the standard varieties. So they can't speak standard languages, or they use their standard varieties. So they would use this pidgin, and with the passage of time, that pidgin, it became lingua franca. It was, it was used as lingua franca by people who were involved in the whole process. For example, pidgin Chinese English, pidgin Chinese English. So you can understand it, what kind of language it is going to be. Pidgin Chinese English was used mainly by speakers of different Chinese languages. And Talk Pidgin is today used as a unifying language among speakers of many different languages in Papua New Guinea. You see, in Papua New Guinea, they are using Talk Pidgin, and this Talk Pidgin actually it's an artificial language. It's created for this kind of business purpose. It is created for business purpose. So that is still used in Papua New Guinea, and that language is called Talk Pidgin. And also in China, they were actually they had communication with the English people. So that's why they also created a language that is called Pidgin Chinese English. So these are all examples of pidgin language. Okay?
Yes, sir.
A common view of a
Okay,
pidgin.
sir.
Okay, good. A common view of a pidginized variety of a language, for example, like Nigerian Pidgin English, is that it is some kind of bad English, that is English imperfectly learned and therefore of no possible interest. I don't know actually whether you had an opportunity to listen to Nigerian English, and of course it sounds like English, and you will also understand it, but you will find that that's a different class of English that we call Nigerian English. But actually that is Nigerian Pidgin English, because English people, they went there and they had their colony. So these local Nigerians, they got influenced by this English. So with the local language and the English, actually it got mixed. So that created Nigerian Pidgin English, and it's still Nigerian people, they're using that. Consequently, then what happens then? And also people, they lost their interest to learn English. When they found that they can communicate using the Nigerian Pidgin English with the English speakers, then they found it unnecessary to learn the standard English. বুঝতে পেরেছো? Hello?
Yes, sir.
এটা একটু যে আমরা বলি না ঘোড়া থেকে ঘোড়ার অবস্থা, যেহেতু পিজিন ভাষায় কথাই বলা যাচ্ছে, ওদের সাথে পিজিন ইংলিশ বললে ওরা বুঝতেই পারে। এই অবস্থা পরিপ্রেক্ষিতে কারণ হয়েছে কি ওদের আর ওই স্ট্যান্ডার্ড ইংলিশ শেখার আগ্রহটাই ছিল না, প্রয়োজন হয়নি, কারণ কথা তো বলছে, কমিউনিকেশন তো হচ্ছে, আর ইংলিশ শিখে কি লাভ? কি বোঝাতে পেরেছে বিষয়টা?
Yes, sir. Main focus communication.
Exactly. So they didn't learn the standard English. Consequently, those who speak a pidgin are likely to be regarded as deficient in some way, almost certainly socially and culturally, and sometimes even cognitively. Such a view is quite untenable. Now, you will tell me, whether you want it or not, actually, you will get bias. And you can't be impartial. How? When we hear, when we listen to some speakers and you see that they're using pidgin English, then and there you will think that that man is illiterate, uneducated, and he has some deficiency regarding language. That's why he can't adopt standard English. Rather, he is using distorted or bad English or Nigerian pidgin English or in any parts of the world, any kind of pidgin English. Understood what I'm saying? So in the society, they are not regarded as somebody who must be respected. So, and they are regarded as uneducated people. তাদেরকে মূর্খ বা হিসেবে ধরা হয়, যেহেতু পিজিন ইংলিশ বলছে, সে স্ট্যান্ডার্ড ইংলিশ বলতে পারে, তখন তার প্রতি আমাদের একটা বাস বা একটা পক্ষপাত একটা ব্যাপার কাজ করে। And even in the society, actually, they are belittled, or you can see as person, actually, their value is, undermined, or it's a kind of undervalued group of people. So in the society, they are not respected, or they are not regarded, or they are not deemed as educated, group of people. So socially and culturally, they are not. They are not put in the hierarchy, and also cognitively, this is very, serious issue. That when you think that somebody is, using pidgin English, and there and there will think that that person actually he is not intellectually that much capable of learning a language. So we will consider him as someone, even if he is not stupid, but will think that he is less meritorious, or he doesn't have the caliber, or cognitively he is not sharp, or he doesn't have the precision to learn the language. But this view is untenable. Untenable means you cannot support that. How could you say that a person he can't speak English? It means that actually cognitively he is not sound, or he doesn't have the capacity to learn a language. We cannot say that. Don't you think so? Can you say that a person he can't learn a language, that means he is stupid?
No, sir. No, sir.
So that's why, it says that actually it is not supported by any research, or we cannot say that. It's a kind of bias, just, you can say it's a kind of bias, just like superstition. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Now, pidgins are not a kind of baby talk used among adults, because the simplified forms are the best that such people can manage. At the same time, you cannot say that it's a baby talk. Baby talk means, you can say what is baby talk? Can't you say what is baby talk? How does baby talk? Sometimes it's meaningless, simply just babbling. Sometimes it makes no sense. Some words they have meaning, some words they don't have any meaning, so they create different kinds of words. Maybe they have meaning to them, but we the adults, we can't make anything out of it, right?
Right, sir.
Right, sir.
So that's baby talk. So we're saying that pidgins are not a baby talk. They have meaning, they have purpose, and they're created intentionally, consciously, for basic communication, right? So you cannot undermine the value of the pidgins. Okay, now pidgins have their own spatial rules, and as we will see, very different pidgins have a number of similarities that raise important theoretical issues having to do with their origin. So some of the pigeons, especially in the African nations, you'll find that they have some rules which are very common. So that's why actually researches have been done to see that actually how these languages with these kind of common grammatical or syntactical features, or or lexical features or morphological features, actually how they have been evolved as language. So research have been done. Researches have been done, and also there are some theoretical issues regarding this matter. যেহেতু তাদের মধ্যে কিছু কমন ব্যাপার স্যাপার দেখা যাচ্ছে আফ্রিকান পিজিনস গুলোর মধ্যে, তখন প্রশ্নই আসে যে স্বভাবতই একেবারে যে প্রসেস ছাড়া ইচ্ছা মতো জিনিসটা হচ্ছে তা না। মানুষের মধ্যে থেকে ভাষার এই বিষয়টা অটোমেটিক্যালি আসে কখন, যখন তার মধ্যে অলরেডি একটা ভাষা আছে। সুতরাং সেই ভাষার সাথে মিল রেখে দেখা যায় যে ওর কিছু ডেভেলপমেন্টটা যথেষ্ট তাত্ত্বিকভাবে সেগুলো প্রমাণ করা যায়। বাট দ্যাট মিনস দ্য গ্রোথ অফ দ্যাট ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ, দ্য এভলিউশন অফ দ্যাট ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ ইজ অলসো সায়েন্টিফিক। ভাষার বিবর্তনটাও দেখা যায় যে যথেষ্ট বৈজ্ঞানিক অনেক ক্ষেত্রে। বুঝতে পেরেছো কি বলছি? এটাকে ওই পিজিন বলে অতটা তাচ্ছিল্য আবার করা যায়। ওকে?
Okay, sir.
That's great. Individual pigeons may be ephemeral. For example, the pigeon German of guest workers in Germany that developed in the 1970s and 1980s in cities such as Berlin and Frankfurt among workers from countries such as Turkey, Greece, Italy, Spain, and Portugal. Now, this is very interesting. It says that the pigeons may be ephemeral. Ephemeral means, can you tell me what does it mean? Ephemeral? Ephemeral means temporary, fleeting, which is not permanent. Okay? Short-lived. So individual pigeons may be ephemeral. So if there is a pigeon language and if that is individually used by a very small number of people, that might be short-lived. কিছুদিন পর এই ভাষাটা হারিয়ে যেতে পারে। এরকম একটা এক্সাম্পল দেওয়া হচ্ছে জার্মানির এই যে ভাষাটা, এটা জার্মান ভাষায় উচ্চারণ কি করে বলে আমি জানি না, কিন্তু লেখা যেহেতু আমাদের রোমান অ্যালফাবেট বলা যায় না, গ্যাস্টারবেটাস বা আমরা ইংলিশে ট্রান্সলেশন দেয়া আছে গেস্ট ওয়ার্কার্স। তার মানে এটা এই পিজনটার নাম কি ছিল ইংরেজিতে আমরা যদি বলি? এই পিজনের নাম হচ্ছে
Guest workers.
গেস্ট ওয়ার্কার্স। ব্যাপারটা কি জানো, একটা সময় 1970 and 80s প্রচুর মানুষ, তখন তো জার্মান বেশ ফ্লারিশিং একটা নেশন, এখনো তারা যথেষ্ট উন্নত একটা দেশ, সেই সময় তারা যথেষ্ট উন্নতি তাদের হচ্ছিল। তখন আশেপাশের comparatively people from poor nations, they migrated to German just to search for jobs, employments. Okay? For example, people from Turkey, Greece, Italy, Spain, and Portugal. So they went to German and they worked there for a specific period of time. So when their jobs or contracts, when they were finished, they went back to their country again. তো যখন তাদের চাকরির চুক্তি শেষ, চাকরি শেষে যখন দেশে ফিরে গেছে, তখন কি ভাষাটা থাকলো? যারা বলতো তারা আর দেশে থাকছে না, তারা চলে গেছে ও দেশ ছেড়ে। উপার্জন করা শেষ, চাকরির মেয়াদ শেষ, তারা যার যার দেশে ফিরে গেছে। তাহলে এই গেস্ট ওয়ার্কার্স অথবা গ্যাস্টারবেটার্স এই পিজনটা আর থাকলো না। কারণ এটা কারা ব্যবহার করবে? আর তো প্রয়োজন হয়নি। কারণ ওই দশকে কাজকর্ম হওয়ার পরে নতুন একটা ইকোনমিক রেভলিউশন হলো, ডিফারেন্ট কালচার, 90s আবার নতুন চেঞ্জ আসছে। আবার অনেকে নাগরিকত্ব নিয়ে জার্মানি যখন থেকে গেছে, তখন তো সে পিজিন ইউজ করবে। যেমন ধরো আমি যদি জার্মানিতে যাই, ফর এক্সাম্পল কাজের জন্য গেছি, তখন আমি কাজের সুবিধার্থে আমরা কিছু লোক পেলে একটা পিজিন ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজের মতো অটোমেটিক্যালি ক্রিয়েটেড হয়ে গেল, ওটা দিয়ে আমরা যে নেটিভ জার্মান আছে তাদের সাথে অফিসে কমিউনিকেশনটা চালিয়ে নিলাম। বুঝতে পারছো উদাহরণটা কি বলছি?
Yes, sir.
তো এর মধ্যে মনে করো যে আমরা XYZ তিনজন কাজ শেষে আমরা যার যার দেশে ফিরে গেলাম, কিন্তু আমাদের কিছু বন্ধু মনে করো ABCD ওরা থেকে গেছে। তো ওরা থেকে গেলে তো পিজিন ইউজ করবে না, কারণ নাগরিকত্ব নিয়ে নিয়েছে। পিজিন দিয়ে আর চলবে? কি শিখতে হবে? যেহেতু ও দেশেই তারা পার্মানেন্টলি থেকে যাচ্ছে, তাদের শিখতে হবে কি?
তাদের দেশের ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ।
কোন দেশের ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ? বাংলা?
না স্যার, ওই দেশে যেটা ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ ছিল সেটা শিখতে হবে।
কোন দেশের উদাহরণ দিয়েছি, সেই দেশের নামটা বল।
স্যার জার্মান।
হ্যাঁ, জার্মানি নিয়ে কথা বলছি। তাহলে জার্মানিতে থেকে গেলে তখন তারা জার্মানি শিখে নেবে। তাহলে পিজিনটা যারা বলতো এক গ্রুপ কাজ শেষে চুক্তি শেষে দেশে ফিরেছে, আর এক গ্রুপ মনে করো ওখানে মাইগ্রেন্টস হিসেবে যেয়ে ওরা তারা সেখানে সিটিজেনশিপ নিয়ে বা তারা থেকে গেল। সুতরাং আর তাদের প্রয়োজন হচ্ছে না ওই জার্মান ব্যবহার করা, তাদেরকে অরিজিনাল জার্মানি শিখতে হবে, কারণ তারা ওখানকার পার্মানেন্ট রেজিডেন্স। আর অন দি আদার হ্যান্ড আমি দেশে ফিরে গেছি, আমি আর ওই তোমার ওই জার্মান পিজিন ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ আমি আর কি করবো? তাহলে ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজটা ডেড হয়ে গেল না, পিজিনটা। এইটা ঘটেছিল জার্মান। এই জন্য ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল এরকম করে পিজিন সার্ভাইভ করতে পারে না। যখন টোটাল নেশনটা একটা কন্ট্যাক্টের জন্য আরেকটা নেশন বা দুই তিনটা নেশনের সাথে কমিউনিকেশনের জন্য নেশনের সবাই ব্যবহার করছে, তখন পিজিন হিসেবে ভাষাটা সার্ভাইভ করার রেটটা বেশি থাকে। ওকে, ইজ ইট ওকে? হ্যালো?
Okay, sir.
Right. Now, in the next slide, you can see the phenomenon, however, is persistent, and between 2 and 12 million people in the world are estimated to use one or other of them. So people who are using Pidgin in today's world, the number is 2 to 12 million people. So 2 to 12 million people in different parts of the world, they are using Pidgin. Furthermore, they are used for matters which are very important to those concerned. So they're important to those people who are concerned, even self-government in Papua New Guinea. So you see, talk Pidgin is very important. Now it has, it has evolved like a separate language, though it is a Pidgin language, but it is used by many people. So talk Pidgin is very important for their self-government. So people in Papua New Guinea, a large number of people in Papua New Guinea, they speak talk Pidgin. It's an artificially created language. Okay? They are highly functioned in the lives of those who use them and are important for that reason alone, if for no other. So for their communication, this talk Pidgin is very important. And you can also see, for example, in Hawaii, there is called Hawaiian English, that is a Pidgin, and also talk Pidgin in Papua New Guinea, and also in different African nations. Still, this Pidginized version of the language, still it has been used. It has been used among the locals. Do you get me what I'm saying? So local people, they are using that language. Okay, I think it's enough. We don't have enough time. I think our time is up, right, for this lecture?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll talk about Creole in our next lecture. So do you have any question? Could you please just mute yourself, because somebody's parents are talking and we can hear it. Do you have any question?
No, sir.
Okay, then that's enough for the day. Thank you very much for your patience, and
Thank you, sir.
talk to you tomorrow, inshallah. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, sir.